Question number 6, the Honourable Annette King.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question's to the Minister of Health. Does he have confidence in his Associate Minister of Health, given that less than half of drinking water supplies serving populations of less than 5,000 people are meeting drinking water standards?
The Honourable Dr Jonathan Coleman.
Yes, and I'm also advised that 96.8% of water supplies serving more than 100 people meet the bacterial standards, and 80% of water supplies serving more than 100 people meet the protozoal standards, while 98.7% of such water supplies meet the chemical standards. So the situation is not quite how the member portrays it.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
A supplementary question, the Honourable Annette King.
As the budget-holding minister, has the recent Havelock North drinking water crisis and the latest crisis at Haumawana School, which has been forced to close today over an E. coli scare, convinced him to reverse his decision to discontinue funding of the subsidy scheme for small communities to upgrade their drinking water supply?
Well,
the Honourable Dr Jonathan Coleman.
The member should remember that it was actually the Labor government that started the scheme. It was a time-limited 10-year scheme, so they always intended for it to finish. And it was actually for populations less than 5,000. Havelock North is considerably more. So she's a bit in danger of becoming sort of the Ryan Lochte of the Parliament, making stuff up, exaggerating, and then having to apologise.
That's right.
Do I deserve an extra question?
Order. Supplementary question. Supplementary question, the Honourable Annette.
He hasn't come back in any better mood, Mr
Order.
Speaker.
No. Order. And that may be the member's opinion, but it's unnecessary to raise that at question time. Can we have the supplementary question?
If the government is really committed to improving drinking water quality in New Zealand, why did they freeze the subsidy scheme in 2009, then restrict access to the scheme in 2011, then underspend the original funding by $20 million in 2015, and finally cancel the scheme altogether last year?
The Honourable Dr Jonathan Coleman.
Once again, the member's conflating a couple of arguments. I mean, it was always a time-limited scheme. In actual fact, Labor always had restrictions around the scheme, so it was limited to decile 4 communities and higher. And no applicant who qualified under the criteria of the scheme did not receive a subsidy unless they hadn't filled the application form out properly. So, quite frankly, what she's saying is completely incorrect.
Speaker.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Annette King.
Why did he ignore the President of Local Government New Zealand, Lawrence Yule, who wanted the subsidy scheme for drinking water in small communities to be reinstated, saying that the scheme provided vital funding support for small communities who cannot afford to upgrade their drinking water?
The Honourable
I haven't been
Jonathan
ignoring
Coleman.
him. I speak to him regularly and in fact spoke to him this morning. The point about that scheme I think has been well covered. It was a time-limited scheme started by that member's party and it had run its course, and in the end all applicants who fulfilled the criteria received a subsidy.
He doesn't know what he's talking about. Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Order.
Yes.
Order.
I was talking about your mate.
Order. We need quite a lot less interjection now coming from many quarters in this House.
Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Annette King.
Will he heed the warning of Professor Russell Death of Massey University, who said contamination is highly likely to happen again in rural areas, or does he stand by his statement that, quote, "We do not have these terrible waterborne epidemics in New Zealand," end quote, and, quote, that actually Campylobacter is a disease found primarily in chickens and a disease of poor food handling, end quote?
The Honourable Dr Jonathan Coleman.
Once again, the member is taking comments out of context. That was from a speech made in 2008, and I stand by those comments in the context they were made at the time. So, the other point I'd make, point of order, Mr Speaker.
Oh, it's just order.
Yeah.
Order. Order. Well, we'll hear whether it is shortly. Point of order, the Honourable Dr.
I'm just noting that you're allowing the member to start her questions with a little flick at the person she's questioning. So you're very keen on maintaining order on the House. I'm just wondering if you're going to let that practice continue.
I can assure the Minister that nothing's changed in the way I try and attempt to keep order in this House over the last 3 weeks while the member might have been away. The Minister's managed to put a number of flicks in himself. I think it's about equal. Question number 7, Dr.